Basic knowledge of statistics. Meaning of statistics. Statistics have two meanings, which are: 1. Statistics mean data collected to state the fact. For example, populations of Thailand are 65.4 million. Date: 1 September 2553. 2. Statistics mean art and science of data interpretation, which is called statistical methods. Statistical methods consist of data collection, data representation, data analysis, and data interpretation. Data and statistical data. Data mean fact or information collected for specific study. Data can be either quantitative or qualitative. Sometimes we call quantitative data observation. Statistical data means sufficient data that can be described, characteristic of study subject, and can be used for comparison or interpretation. A single unit of data is not considered statistical data. Example of statistical data: 16,819 baht as cost of a family per month, year 2,553. Type of data. Statistical data can be classified into two types, which are quantitative and qualitative. 1. Quantitative data is data measured on a numerical scale. Examples of quantitative data are ages, height, weight, revenue, velocity, distance. 2. Qualitative data describes items in terms of some quality or categorization which cannot be measured on a numerical scale. Sometimes qualitative data can be numerical, but these numbers have no meaning in terms of quantity. For example, gender, status, religion, opinion, education, career. Data sources. We can categorize data according to source of data and can be classified into primary and secondary data. 1. Primary data is data directly collected from source. Collection methods include interviewing, counting, measure, or observation. 2. Secondary data is data already collected by others. Users don't have to collect data. Secondary data can be in form of reports, journals. Statistical presentations. There are two types of statistical presentations, which are informal and formal presentations. Informal presentation. 1. Text presentation is presentation with data figures as parts of the messages. This method of presentation suits for simple data and offers adequate details. We usually see this type of presentation on newspaper and radio. For example, ASEAN has area about 4,435,570 kilometers squared, and population about 590 million people. 2. Semi-tabular presentation is similar to text presentation, except that a semi-tabular presentation separates numbers from text in order to make data easier and more convenient to understand. Formal presentation. 1. Tabular presentation is a widely used form of a presentation. Tabular presentation uses table to list related data with high details. This type of presentation helps users to be able to quickly search and compare data easier. 2. Charts and diagram presentations. These types of presentations offer users to be able to compare data easier than tabular presentation. Charts and diagrams presentations consist of bar chart, pie chart, pictogram, and statistical map. Country: Indonesia, Burma, Thailand, Vietnam, Malaysia, Philippines, Laos, Cambodia, Brunei, Singapore. 2.1. Bar charts consist of rectangular and can be vertical or horizontal. Heights of these rectangular are ratio of data size or quantity. 2.2. Pie charts used for comparison details of data from the same set. Pie charts represented by circle and divide the circle according to ratio of data size, that is. Angle of data equals data over all data times 360 degrees. Percentage of data equals data over all data times 100. 2.3. Pictogram uses pictures to represent data quantity. 2.4. Statistical maps are presentations which respect to geology and are more convenient for comparing geological data. 3. Line graph presentations. Line graph presentations are usually used for time series data which changes according to time and can quickly show data characteristics and also be able to forecast future information as graphs. Frequency distribution is one of statistical methods to arranging or grouping data for further analysis and can be done in two ways. 1. Simple frequency distribution. Is data arrangement ranging from minimum to maximum. This method suits for small size data and little differences between data. 2. Grouped frequency distribution. For large data, it's inconvenient to use simple frequency distribution. Instead, we arrange data into interval and then find tally. Sums of tally are frequencies. Frequency distribution table glossaries. 1. Lower limit is the minimal data of that class interval. For example, 10 through 14, 15 through 19, 20 through 24. Lower limits are 10, 15, and 20 respectively. 2. Upper limit is the maximum data of that class interval. For example, 10 through 14, 15 through 19, 20 through 24. Upper limits are 14, 19, and 24 respectively. 3. Lower boundary is the average of the lower limit of a current class interval and upper limit of lower class interval. For example, lower boundary of interval 15 through 19 is 15 plus 14 over 2 equals 14.5. 4. Upper boundary is average of the upper limit of current class interval and lower limit of upper class interval. For example, upper boundary of class interval 15 through 19 is 19 plus 20 over 2 equals 19.5. 5. Middle point is the average of the lower and upper boundary of average of the lower and upper limit. For example, middle point of class interval 15 through 19 is 14.5 plus 19.5 over 2 equals 17. Or 15 plus 19 over 2 equals 17. 6. Interval is difference between the upper and lower boundary. Interval can be represented by L or C. For example, interval of class 10 minus 14 is 14.5 minus 9.5 equals 5. Interval of class 15 through 19 is 19.5 minus 14.5 equals 5. Creating frequency distribution table. This can be done by following these procedures. 1. Find range of data. Range is difference between maximum and minimum of data set, which is range equals maximum minus minimum. 2. Determine numbers of class intervals, generally using 7 through 15 class intervals. 3. Determine interval form a formula. Interval I equals maximum minus minimum over number of interval. 4. Write down each class interval into descending and ascending order. 5. Count tally and find frequency. Relative frequency distribution. Relative frequency can be in form of fraction, decimal, or percentage, which is called percent of relative frequency, which is relative frequency equals class interval frequency over overall frequency. Percent of relative frequency equals class interval frequency over overall frequency times 100%. Example, find relative frequency and percent of relative frequency from the given frequency distribution table. Cumulative frequency distribution. Cumulative frequency of each class interval is the total of that class frequency and all frequencies below or above it in a frequency distribution. Cumulative relative frequency distribution. Cumulative relative frequency can be in form of fraction, decimal, or percentage called percentage of cumulative relative frequency, which is relative frequency equals class frequency overall frequency. Percent of relative frequency equals class frequency over overall frequency times 100%. Example, find relative frequency and percent of relative frequency from frequency distribution table. Graphical frequency distribution. Graphical frequency distribution allows users to observe data more clearly than those of frequency distribution table. Examples of graphical frequency distribution are as follow. Histogram, frequency polygon, frequency curve. 1. Histograms are a set of rectangular graphs stuck together. Each width of rectangular represents interval of each class. Each length of rectangular represents frequency of each class. Example, create a histogram from the following frequency distribution table. 2. Frequency polygon is polygon created by connecting each middle point to adjacent middle points. Example, create frequency polygon from the given frequency distribution table. 3. Frequency curve is a curve results from smoothing frequency polygon. Area under frequency curve should be close or equal to area of frequency polygon. Example. Create frequency polygon from the given frequency distribution table. Exercise 6.1. Show procedures. 1. The following information is the ages of 40 students in a college.